February 17, 2009, Houston, Texas. Federal agents show up at the Stanford Financial Group's headquarters carrying paperwork instead of handcuffs. For now. The SEC has just filed civil fraud charges against the company's chairman, a man who spent the last 2 decades letting people call him Sir. Within a week, his cricket sponsorships are canceled, his knighthood is hanging by a thread, and roughly $8 billion the bank claimed to have on hand is nowhere to be found. Meet Alan Stanford. Stanford was a fifth-generation Texan who made his first real money flipping Houston real estate with his father in the 1980s. Then he did something more ambitious. In 1985, he opened an offshore bank in Montserrat, in the British West Indies. When regulations there got inconvenient, he simply moved the whole operation to Antigua and renamed it Stanford International Bank. The pitch was simple: certificates of deposit that paid noticeably higher interest than anything a U.S. bank would offer. Safe, liquid, conservative investments, according to the brochures. Stanford targeted Latin American investors, especially in Venezuela, along with Gulf Coast oil workers sitting on fat pensions. Classic setup. New depositor money quietly paid off the old depositors. Nobody asks questions when the checks keep clearing. Here's where Stanford separates himself from your average fraudster. Most Ponzi schemers try to stay invisible. Stanford built a stadium. He became Antigua's largest employer, funneled money into local causes, and in 2006, the country knighted him. From then on, it was Sir Alan. He fell in love with cricket, bought a team, then a league, then rewrote the rules of a 500-year-old sport to fit his taste for spectacle, sinking millions into the Stanford 2020 tournament and its $20 million prize match, watched by an estimated 300 million people worldwide. By 2008, Forbes had him ranked 205th richest person on the planet, worth around $2.2 billion. Meanwhile, prosecutors later said he was treating the bank like his personal ATM, a Florida castle for a girlfriend, a yacht, custom suits, the whole catalog. All of it funded by other people's certificates of deposit. The 2008 financial crisis was bad for everyone. For Stanford, it was catastrophic, because withdrawal requests suddenly outpaced new deposits, and there was no actual pile of safe, liquid investments behind any of it. His fix was audacious even by Ponzi standards. He announced he was personally injecting $741 million of his own money into the bank to shore it up. To make the math look plausible, his accountants took a piece of real estate the bank had bought for $63.5 million earlier that year and marked it up on paper to $3.1 billion. No appraisal, no renovations, just a number that went up by 5,000% because someone typed it into a spreadsheet. To keep regulators from noticing, evidence at trial showed Stanford paid bribes through a Swiss slush fund, to his own bank's auditor, and to the head of Antigua's financial regulator, who fed him inside information about the SEC's investigation. It didn't hold. The SEC filed charges in February 2009, freezing what assets they could find. Investigators went looking for the $8 billion the bank claimed to be sitting on and came up 92% short. Antigua stripped his knighthood that November. A federal indictment followed with 14 counts, carrying a theoretical maximum of 230 years. The trial itself got delayed after Stanford was beaten in a jailhouse brawl and developed a painkiller addiction severe enough that a judge briefly ruled him unfit to stand trial. He eventually did, in January 2012, and a jury convicted him on 13 of 14 counts that March. In June 2012, a federal judge handed down 110 years, calling it one of the most egregious frauds ever presented to a jury. Roughly 30,000 investors across more than 100 countries had put their money into a bank whose CD returns were, by the SEC's own words, entirely fictional. Investigators eventually clawed back a few $100 million against a $7 billion hole. Most victims got back pennies on the dollar, if anything at all. He spent 20 years building a reputation as a knight, a philanthropist, and a man who'd rewritten the rules of cricket. It took the SEC about a week to reveal all of it was funded on paper that meant nothing.